Good morning, students. On the last turn, we have finished our chapter carbon and its compound. During the last video, I have told that there is some of the portion that is deleted, and I have explained that the deleted portion is deleted for this year. That's why we don't have to do that. Extraction of metals and the properties of carbon compounds etc. are deleted for this year. Now today we will start our next chapter of bio, that is heredity and evolution. This is chapter number 9. So we are starting our next chapter, heredity and evolution. As we have seen that reproductive processes give rise to new individual, and these individual are similar to their parent. These are similar, but these are not carbon copies of their parents. They have some differences. Differences mean their structure have some difference. As we know, all livings produce offsprings which resemble to their parent but are not carbon copy, or they are not exactly similar to their parents, means they have some of the variation. These variation may appear due to changes in DNA copying, as we have studied earlier in the chapter of reproduction. These variation may appear due to changes in DNA copying that takes place in sexual reproduction, or we can say during sexual reproduction variation may be more than in comparison to the asexual reproduction, as we have studied earlier. This can be seen when we compare the variation in a human being that is sexually reproducing and a crop field of sugarcane that is asexually reproducing. There may be variation in case of sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, but more variation are seen during sexual reproduction. The variations are less among the individual plants of sugarcane field because these plants are propagated from the same stalk by asexual reproduction. As you must have seen, when sugarcane is cut from the fields, some of the portion, last portion of the plant having the rooted plant, rooted part is left in the field, so that the sugarcane can be grown again. But if the another crop is to be grown, then all of the parts of the plants are removed, and when the sugarcane is to be grown again, these cuttings, the cuttings of the sugarcane plants can be grown again to grow it again. So this is the asexual reproduction. But quite distinct variations are visible among different human beings which are reproducing sexually. Here, so in this chapter we shall be studying the mechanism by which variations are created and inherited. Inherited means transferred, means inheritance or inherited means process by which characters pass from one generation to next. So our chapter is heredity, and our heredity means the inheritance or transfer of characters from parents to offspring. So we see heredity and inheritance or transfer go side by side, and the branch of biology in which we study the heredity and variation is called genetics. So, genetics is the branch of biology in which we study about the heredity. Now, accumulation of variation during reproduction. Inheritance from the previous generation provides both a common basic body design and subtle changes in it for the next generation. Inheritance from parent to offspring provide two main features. These features are as follows. Number one, common basic body design. What is the basic design of the individual that is to be inherited, and second is slight changes or variation. So, when the new generation will reproduce, it will pass variation of first generation and new variants along with common basic design to the next generation. As here in your book on page number 142, there is given a figure 9.1, in which it is shown how the asexually reproducing young ones are produced, individuals or offsprings are produced. So, as we know, in asexual reproduction, one individual is responsible for production of new offsprings. So, that is the case. If we see this is one individual, and it has to be reproduce two of the offspring. So, we see this is in this case, this is the structure which will produce in F1 generation, when after reproducing or after fertilization, or you can say the new individual, it can produce the new offspring in F1 generation. This is the F1 generation. Suppose this is the individual, during asexual reproduction. This is the case of asexual reproduction. This in F1 generation, it is seen when one individual divide into two, one of the individual will have the similar characters, when they have the normal characters of the parent, normal character, and in this it is seen one of the character is dissimilar than the parent. As we are saying, this is the individual, this is the individual, but here this shows that one of the dissimilar character is seen in one from two. So, this is the changed character. We can write it as changed character. Now, if this normal character is again divided, as we can draw it like that, in F2 generation, what will happen during asexual reproduction? There can be some of the changes, like if the individual is like that, in this case, as you have seen that in F1, this is F1 generation, when after the division of single parent, two of the offspring has produced, and one was normal as the similar as the parent, but one was having one of the dissimilar character. So when they will again divide, it will produce two of the offspring, and from these we will see two of the offspring that have been produced, they will have again the dissimilar characters. When the characters have changed, in this case in F1 generation, when F2 generation is produced, this is F2 generation, it is seen that there may be chances of changed character again from the similar one. This is the similar one and this is the dissimilar one. In which the one of the character is changed, this is the character that is changed. It will have both which have the dissimilar character. So this is the case of asexual reproduction, where we see some of the characters can be changed. Now why these changes are appearing? These differences or changes are due to small inaccuracies. This is the small inaccuracy, small inaccuracies in DNA copying, but sexual reproduction could have produced even greater diversity. So this is the case in asexual reproduction. There can be little or less changes or less variation can be seen, but in case of sexual reproduction, more of the changes or variation can be seen. Now all the variations produced do not have equal chances of their survival, and some variations are useful. Which variations are useful, they can be carried on in the next generation, and which are not useful, they can be finished at the similar generation. So here some variations are useful while others are not, and nature select those variants which are useful and others are eliminated. As I have told earlier, which are useful, they remain in the next generation, and which are not useful, they are eliminated from the population. Here one of the some of the examples are given in our book, that are the rolling of the tongue. You must have seen some people, some of your friends can roll their tongue. Beside that, you must have seen some have the fused hair lobes, some have separate or free hair lobes. Then some have the straight thumb, and some can fold it down like that. This is called as hitchhiker's thumb. So these are the examples of variations which are still present in human beings, in case of human beings. Now heredity. Heredity, as we have discussed earlier, its meaning means transfer of characters from parent to offspring is called heredity. Characters when offspring have the similar character, some of the offspring can have some of the characters similar to mother and some of the character similar to father. So, offsprings are the individual which are produced by sexual reproduction. The concept of heredity is not new. Ancient people know from their experience that there are some organisms which produce better offsprings than the other. Chinese practice selective breeding to get better varieties of paddy. Paddy means rice. They know it earlier from the ancient time. They grow the more useful or more good varieties of plants that have the good characters. They grow them. But it was only in 19th century that John Maddell discussed the basic principles governing the inheritance of characters. And some of these principles, he has followed some of the principles, and some of these principles are as follows. Principle of paired factor, then principle of dominance, and third is principle of segregation. So these are the principle that beside that one more principle is that principle of independent assortment. So these principle we will discuss on next turn. So that's all for today.